To Hong Kong now, where protesters are refusing to back down today. The city's top leader, Carrie Lam, spoke earlier and said a controversial extradition bill was dead, but she refused to officially withdraw it, and protesters fear the government will try to revive the legislation.
So here's what it would do. It would allow extraditions to mainland China. Many fear Beijing is trying to tighten its grip on Hong Kong and crack down on freedom. So for more on this, let's bring in CBS News Asia correspondent Ramy Inocencio. He's joining us on the phone from Beijing. So, Ramy, I guess a lot of people are trying to understand. If Carrie Lam is saying that this bill is dead, why not just remove it?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Vlad. The reason for this is because the word dead is officially not a legal term in terms of trying to get this bill officially withdrawn. The idea here is that if it's officially withdrawn, then it can't be retabled. It can't be resubmitted back into the legislature, which is what the protesters really want. So one can argue that this is a question of semantics, dead versus withdrawn, but from a legal perspective, from the basic law perspective of Hong Kong, the only thing that protesters really will be happy with, apparently, is if this is officially withdrawn, if it's officially revoked.
So the opposition movement in Hong Kong, they are keeping up the pressure. So we've got video. This says July 7th. What's the situation there like now?
Sure. Well, looking at the video that you're probably rolling right now, especially through the past month, we've been seeing amazing amounts of protests. The 1 million person march on July 7th, the 2 million person march about a week later. And right now, opposition leaders, they basically are saying that they're not happy with what the Chief Executive Carrie Lam has said today. They've reiterated their 5 demands, chief among them that they, again, withdraw this controversial extradition bill and its proposals. And 2, they want her to step down. They want her to resign. Interesting to note, though, that the protesters, the opposition known as the Civil Human Rights Front, or the CHRF, they didn't have anything new to say. So it's interesting to see that their positioning on this has been the same line that they've been towing. No doubt that they're probably trying to figure out next steps. And the point off of that is that there are no major protests planned ahead. The last thing that we saw was July 1st with the protests of the handover, the 22nd anniversary of the handover there. And the fact that there's nothing set really calls into question what really is next, both on the opposition side as well on the government, as well as on the pro-establishment side.
You know, Ramy, these images are just unbelievable, and we've been seeing them going back to the very first mention of this bill back in June, I believe. But I wonder what the reaction or what level of information has been received by the folks in mainland China. We know that China on the mainland controls the media in a much tighter restriction than they do in Hong Kong. And given that we just looked back at the 30th anniversary of Tiananmen Square, I wonder if the images that we're showing across our screen right now are images that people in mainland China are also seeing.
You're right. In short, Vlad, absolutely not. They are not being seen here in mainland China. When the news broke that Chief Executive Carrie Lam would say that this bill is dead, she would kill the bill, the news that I was watching on an international news station, English language news station, went straight to black right when they started covering this. I switched over to another station that was also black, and this went along for maybe about several minutes, to the point where I thought that I had accidentally turned off my television. I hit my remote on and off, and sure enough, my television still had been on. This was the extent of how long this coverage had been going on and how long this censorship had been going on as well. Also, while our CBS News team was in Hong Kong over the past few weeks, we did talk to a few people who had come in from mainland China, or Hong Kong protesters who had tried to speak to mainland Chinese people visiting the territory. And to their amazement, they did not themselves know what was going on in Hong Kong as well. So whether it's a credit to the censorship in China, or something just as an amazing fact that 1.3 billion people here, for the most part, are left in the dark, is truly something amazing. With that said, if you wanted to get news here, there are VPNs. There are special websites you can go to access news outside. But for the most part, these aren't free. They do cost a lot, and people to be honest, really may not be interested in actually accessing the information.
Well, that was going to be my final question, Ramy, because I just thought to myself, okay, blacking out the television would have certainly been a way to prevent people from finding out what's happening around the world, 20 years ago. But it's a much different scenario now when you have access to different platforms, including streaming and VPN software that allows you to mask where you're actually accessing the information from. And so it is remarkable that 1.3 billion people would not, at least at some level, perhaps people that have more financial means, be aware of what's happening in Hong Kong. But as you say, perhaps people are not that interested.
Yeah, and one thing that is, I guess for people in the Western world watching this, there has been more reports of people here in mainland China who say, you know what, if Hong Kong, if the city falls apart, if it becomes worse for wear, it's actually a bonus. It's actually a positive for mainland China because they have seen something in Hong Kong as something of an ideal. And now with the rising China that we've been seeing over the past generation or so, they see that if anything can be done to push other cities, push other governments, push other people to the wayside, there is this rising sentiment that says, if we can't have it here in mainland, why should Hong Kong have it? And it would only be a benefit to Beijing to rise even higher.
All right, Ramy Inocencio for us in Hong Kong. Thank you, Ramy.
You're welcome.